These are devotions for people at a social distance. I'd just like to share a few reflections on the events of the past several days. As most people will know, there were 215 bodies of dead children that have been discovered, have not been unearthed, but have been discovered in Kamloops, BC, on the site of a closed residential school. And I'd just like to share some of my reactions, as this whole story has unfolded. I got to tell you, my first reaction when I first heard the news was, yeah, of course. I mean, if you have been paying attention, if you have followed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, if you followed the report on murdered and missing Indigenous women in Canada, you knew. You knew that on the site of many of the residential schools in Canada, there are almost certainly unmarked graves. And certainly the Indigenous people of Canada know and have known for a very long time the huge impact in terms of children who went away to residential schools and never came home, and for whom there was no real explanation. I wasn't surprised. And and maybe because of that, I didn't necessarily react on that emotional level. But I have been somewhat moved to see people reacting on that emotional level. And I realize now that just the simple fact that the evidence is there, that the evidence is out clearly, on this particular site, this terrible tragedy took place, and it wasn't a tragedy only; it was a crime in many ways. And I think the only really appropriate, or the first appropriate response. There are many other responses that need to be made, but the first appropriate response is grief and lament. It's horrible to be faced once again with the very disturbing evidence of the dark history of our own country. And obviously, Indigenous communities in Canada are in mourning and need to be. But we need to understand that this is not just their grief. This is all of our grief. This is an affliction on the whole country, and we are all part of it. I know we did not personally take part. We are not personally guilty, but it is part of who we are as a people in Canada. And even though this took place on the site, this particular case took place on the site of a residential school run by the Roman Catholic Church. I know that there were schools run by the Presbyterian Church, and that there doubtlessly very similar things happened there. Just we can't just put this on other people, on other organizations. This is on all of us, and it's part of who we are. And I just like to say that the first response, before we begin to take action, and action needs to be taken soon and swiftly, is indeed grief and lament. I turn to Psalm 85 today. Restore us again, O God of our salvation, and put away your indignation towards us. Will you be angry with us forever? Will you prolong your anger to all generations? Will you not revive us again, so that your people may rejoice in you? Show us your steadfast love, O Lord, and grant us your salvation. And salvation is needed, not just, yes, for Indigenous communities, but for Canada itself, for all of us. We turn to God for hope and healing and a better future that we make with wise and just decisions moving forward. Lord, hear our prayer. Amen.